Today, I wanted to talk to you about a mistake that I see people make all the time when they're planning their first multi-generational trip to Europe. It's not necessarily what you think. It's not necessarily the destination. It's not necessarily the planning that you put into it ahead of time. It's not the budget. That key mistake that I see people make all the time is forgetting to slow down, forgetting to plan into their travels the ability to go slow and do less. And I've found in my own travels that that can be such an important way to have a trip go from something that's okay to something that's absolutely amazing and something that you're gonna remember for the rest of your life. You might be wondering to yourself, well, why do people rush? Why do they plan trips that are checklists that take you from one tourist destination to another? And what I see people doing all the time is they feel this pressure, they feel this need to pack everything into their trip, and it takes away from the moments, the ability to connect as a family. People feel like they're spending so much money on this trip that they have to see every major site. And I really think it's important to change your mindset. Visit these cities like you're gonna be back. I think we often fall into this pattern of feeling like we have to get the most out of each of these trips by slowing down and spending more time on leisurely walks and time at playgrounds, trying to live more like a local. The time that you slow down, that's the time that grandkids can actually connect with their grandparents. That's the time that you get to see your kids light up as they walk into a historic square for the first time. I think it can be such a powerful way to travel and visit these European cities. And it's something that I think if you build into your planning up front, you're gonna have such a more enjoyable trip to Europe. Several years ago now, my wife and I, we were traveling on an amazing trip to Italy, but we fell right into the trap that I'm talking about here. We were visiting Naples. This was a trip before we had kids. We were actually on a trip with my wife's parents, and one of the days we packed way too much in and more than we could handle, and what should have been an amazing, wonderful day turned into being a rather stressful, difficult day of travel for us. So we rented a car and we drove from Naples to the amazing Pompeii historical site. And we had more to do that day. We actually wanted to also go to the Amalfi Coast and visit Positano. What we found, since we tried to pack too much into this day, is that we weren't able to actually enjoy what we were doing. When we were at Pompeii, we had a time that we needed to all meet back up and be done with our visit. And my wife and I felt like we had so much more to see at this amazing historical site, which I would highly recommend visiting with your family. But we weren't able to spend the time we wanted there. We had to rush off and jump back in the car. And when we got to Positano, we had really just enough time to see the city. And suddenly we were going, oh, it's the end of the day. We really need to load back up in the car. And just was one of those things that we realized afterwards that we should have only planned one of those activities in the day, and we would have gotten so much more out of it. And I can't even imagine how that day would have gone if we would have had kids with us too. We would have been so tired and worn out by the end. Looking ahead now, when I plan these trips, one of the key things that I put into the planning process is I really focus on planning one key activity each day. And where I saw this really come to just presence and the ability to enjoy these trips to such a degree was the last time that we visited Paris. And on one of the days, we planned to go and visit Sainte-Chapelle, the beautiful cathedral on Ile-de-Cité in the heart of Paris. And that day, we could have so easily packed in far too many things to see in a day. We went by Notre Dame, and the old us, the checklist us, would have said, hey, we're at Notre Dame, let's swing in, let's visit. And instead of doing that, we just took a look at the outside, we explored the streets, we walked as a family, and from there, we actually found this amazing place to have lunch, a crepes restaurant, and we had the time to enjoy a leisurely lunch with family. We had a conversation that my son was eating crepes for the first time, and we all talked about what we ordered and how our day was going. And then later on, we had those tickets for Sainte-Chapelle. We went in, visited the amazing cathedral, but we had the time to spend, to be in there and to be in awe at the magnificent stained glass. Another place I'd highly recommend taking your family to. And after that, actually, we headed back out into the beautiful streets of Paris. And from there, we decided, do we want to grab some pastries from a patisserie, or do we want to get some ice cream from a local shop? And this moment, if we had been rushing, if we had packed too much in, we wouldn't have had time to have this moment. And my son said, ice cream. I want to go get some ice cream. So we got to the ice cream shop and sat down as a family in a booth, and my son sat across from his grandparents, and we all just enjoyed ice cream together. It's such a simple thing, but it allowed us to connect. It allowed us to have such a more enjoyable time because we slowed down. And that day was one of my favorite days of the trip, and it's something that by slowing down, it's going to give you and your family so much more value out of these trips you take to Europe. So it's all good and well to talk about planning a slower paced trip, but in practicality, what does this actually look like? Well, a key piece to us is planning to have one major activity each day and keeping the rest of the day really open for spontaneous exploration. Build in plenty of time for long European lunches, and it's going to give you so much more opportunity to be together, to be present as a family, and to finish your vacations feeling like you actually connected and were able to relax and see Europe more like a local than a tourist. So I think the paradox here is the fact that when you slow down, it may feel like as you plan these trips that you're going to do less, but I actually think you're going to end up doing more. You're going to have more experiences that you remember from the trip. To be honest, when you get back from your Europe trips, your kids aren't going to remember the 12 museums that you visited in one day. What they're going to remember is the time they were able to sit across from their grandma and grandpa and enjoy that ice cream or that pastry that they were eating as you all had time to slow down, to connect, and to savor the experience of being in Europe. And as you go about the planning process, it's actually going to make it somewhat easier because you're not going to feel like you have to plan in 12 museums in one day. You know that you'll be able to plan in one big activity that's going to happen each day, and then the rest of the day is going to be fairly open and flexible. So if that's something that sounds good to you, then give it a try for your next multi-generational trip. And if you found this content today to be useful and helpful, then if you would, it'd be so helpful if you could like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to have a lot more information coming about how to plan these wonderful multi-generational trips. And thanks so much for walking with me today. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time.